Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Los Gatos Joint Town Council Parking Authority meeting of June 16th, 2014. At this time, I'd like to ask those in attendance to please silence your communication devices. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Thank you and good evening. Councilmember Diane McNutt.
Here.
Councilmember Barbara Spector.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Przynski.
Here.
Vice Mayor Marcia Jensen.
Here.
Mayor and Chair Steve Leonardis.
Here. Before we begin tonight's meeting, I'd like to take this opportunity to inform the community about a former Los Gatos town librarian named John Schmuck, who passed away after a long illness. He passed away Friday, June 13th. In September of 1953, John Schmuck was appointed to the position of town librarian, which he held until he retired in 1987 after 34 years of service to our community. Mr. Schmuck was instrumental in the library's growth from the old Carnegie building to the American Legion building, and from there to the former location in the Civic Center before we built our big, beautiful library to my right. Previously, Mr. Schmuck had been a tail gunner on a B-26 in World War II and was awarded the Air Medal with 2 oak leaf clusters, which is a very high honor. He earned a bachelor's degree in political science and at the University of Akron in Ohio, and a master's degree in library sciences from the University of Southern California. So in honor of Mr. John Schmuck, we will be adjourning tonight's meeting in his name. At this time, I would like to invite Ms. Linda Wong and Mr. Harry Wong to help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. Please give them a round of applause. I will tell you a few words about Linda and Harry, beginning with Linda, ladies first. Linda is a 3rd grader at Blossom Hill Elementary School. Linda plays piano, and in 2014, she was in a U.S. music competition in Oakland, where she performed an open solo in the 2D category, which is 2nd grade, and she received the 2nd place award in that category. In 2013, at the same music competition, the U.S. music competition at Oakland, she performed the open solo in 2D, and she received the 3rd place award. Linda performs dance, and in 2013, she was in the Kids Artistic Review dance competition in San Jose. And Little Red Fans was performed by Linda and 14 other girls who won the Most Entertaining Award across all styles and categories for large groups of dancers. Linda is on the Dianza Cupertino Aquatics pre-competition swim team. Linda loves reading and drawing. Linda likes playing piano finger exercises, sewing, knitting, and weaving. And that is Linda. Now we will talk about Harry. Harry is an 8th grader at Fisher Middle School. He is a spelling bee champion. In 2014, he was the CBS Bay Area Spelling Bee Regional Finalist. In 2013 and 2014, he was in his school spelling bee. 2014, he was in the school spelling bee for Spanish. Harry is also a math champion, and in the American Mathematics competition for 8th grade and below, Harry scored a perfect score in 2011 and 2013, and this was the first time ever for Fisher Middle School. So we're very proud of Harry for that accomplishment. Yet, even more, in 2014, Harry was a qualifier for the United States of America Junior Mathematic Olympiad, and there are only 235 qualifiers for this competition in the whole nation, and this is for students grade 10 and below. So in that competition in 2014, Harry's team won the national award. His team of 3 people, and they're all from California. So very, very impressive. In 2014, Harry also won the Math Counts competition, where he came in 2nd place individually. For winning 1st place with his other team members, Harry gets to be the Grand Marshal of the parade at Disney World, which is which is fantastic. I'll tell you a few other accomplishments about Harry. Harry plays the violin at the Fisher Edition Orchestra. He is on the De Anza Aquatics swim competition team. He has done 76 hours of community service from 2011 to 2014 while he attended Fisher. He loves to play video games. He has one, it says here, he failed to spell the word trunkle, Truncal, at the regional spelling final. What does trunkle mean, Harry? Do you know?
Having to do with your trunk, the front of your body.
Having to do with the trunk in front of your body?
This part of your body is called the trunk.
Oh, okay. So we all learned something from Harry this evening. Anyway, please join me in welcoming Linda and Harry Wong for their accomplishments.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Another round of applause for their many accomplishments. Go shake hands. We're very proud of you, Harry. Thank you. Very proud of you, Linda. Thank you. Keep up the good work. So one more round of applause. At this time, I'd like to invite the Los Gatos High School Symphonic Band and Orchestra and Choir to come join me at the podium, as well as Chris Mara, the music director. Tonight we will be presenting commendations to the band, orchestra, and choir students from Los Gatos High School. They are leaving on a trip to England from June 21st through June 30th to participate in the Harrogate International Festival with world-renowned composer Frank Tichelli in Italian. There are 136 tour student musicians, instructors, boosters, and chaperones who will be joining them, engaging in cultural exchange, music, and memory making with Los Gatos High School counterparts in London, York, and Harrogate. The town is pleased to issue proclamations to present to the dignitaries associated with the various performances. I'm going to read one of the proclamations. I'm not going to read all of them, but they all read similarly. Whereas Los Gatos High School Symphonic Band, Orchestra, and Choir will embark on the Los Gatos England Tour 2014 in London, York, and Harrogate on June 20th, 2014, and whereas the performance tour will provide an opportunity for these student musicians to be exposed to the music, art, culture, and history of the country of England, and whereas the students, faculty, parents, and volunteers will play the role of ambassadors and have the unique privilege of officially representing the community of Los Gatos, and whereas under the direction of Mr. Chris Mara and Miss Ma Russell Riley, the Los Gatos High School ensembles will perform in concert at the Festival Gala Concert at the Central Hall, Westminster, where the United States of America will be represented by the Office of Ambassador Matthew Barzan, Ambassador of the United States of America to the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and whereas the members of the Los Gatos High School Symphonic Band, Orchestra, and Choir will showcase their character, integrity, professionalism, and musicianship on the Los Gatos England Tour in 2014. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Stephen Lenardis, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the town of Los Gatos, do deem it appropriate and do hereby proclaim the week of June 22nd through June 29th as Los Gatos Music Harrogate Festival 2014 week within our town, and urge all residents to commend these student musicians for their commitment to community, academics, and the arts. And this is proclaimed the 16th day of June 2014 in Los Gatos. And Mr. Marr, would you like to say a few words?
I just want to, thank you. I just want to say thank you to the town for all the support and for the proclamations. It's a real pleasure to teach music here, and I speak on behalf of the students. It's a real pleasure to be a part of this town and to represent this town and this community on an international level. So we're really grateful for the proclamation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I will be presenting them the accommodation, so another round of applause for them. You guys want to get a photo in the middle?
Sure.
Grant? I'll get in the middle somewhere. 3 and 3, 3 and 4, something like that. Okay.
No, make sure you can see you.
Thank you. Also, I would like to present accommodation to Mr. Ed Stahl this evening. Mr. Ed Stahl, would you please come forward? You're welcome to applause. This year in Los Gatos, we started a new segment called Small Business, Big Applause, where we honor those business owners who have been in our community for many years, serving the community, going above and beyond the normal service model. Through thick and thin, through recession and Great Recession, and through all those hard times, yet year after year after year, they provide exemplary service and keep our town vibrant and serve our community. Going well beyond just serving the community, in many instances giving back to the community and giving back to our service clubs and our many organizations in town. Mr. Stahl's business has stood the test of time. What's it been, 53 years? And at this point in Mr. Stahl's career, he could probably assign the business to somebody else or sell out or do many other things. He has choices in life, but he chooses to continue to serve the community. And it's very admirable. This is why this award has been created. In this day and age, with the internet and all the pressures to operate a small business, it's difficult enough, especially a travel business such as Travel Advisors. And I think this is the only one in our whole community that does travel agency. So it's very impressive. It just says a lot about the type of business you have, your commitment to the community, your commitment to service, and your work ethic that you continue to bring to our community to be able to survive through all these years with this kind of a business. So I'm going to be presenting you a accommodation for your efforts, and we look forward to many more years of you in our community operating Travel Advisors. So here, many more, many more, as many as you can. So I begin. Whereas Travel Advisors of Los Gatos has been owned and operated by Edward Stahl since opening on January 1st, 1962. And whereas Travel Advisors of Los Gatos, a full-service travel agency that specializes in air travel, tours, and cruises, and whereas Travel Advisors of Los Gatos has been voted the best travel agency by the San Francisco Chronicle and employs agents that are declared the best in the business by customer testimonials, and whereas Mr. Stahl has been a long-standing member of the community and past president of the Los Gatos Rotary, and sponsors many community activities and fundraising events through the travel advisors of Los Gatos, including Jazz on the Plaz, Claws for a Cause, and the annual Rotary Crab Fest, among others. Now, therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Los Gatos does hereby render, with special appreciation, accommodation to travel advisors for over 50 years of dedicated service to the Los Gatos community, and it's dated June 16th, 2014. How about a big round of applause to Mr. Stahl? Ed, you're welcome to share a few words if you'd like.
How few?
As few as you like. First, we'll give you
Thank
a
you.
shake.
Great.
We'll give you the plaque. Thank you. Thank you.
It really gives me great pleasure to be up here. I could not do this alone. My office staff and outside sales force are just wonderful, and there are none that are better. My manager, Marilyn Gum, has been with me 33 years or something. Anyway, we don't like to talk about all the longevity because we start adding it up and it goes forever. But I just enjoyed Los Gatos back in 1957 when I first came through Los Gatos. I said, this is where I'm going to raise my family. And I've been very, very fortunate in the fact that I have been able to do that. And now in this part of my life, the kind of giving back a bit, quite a bit to the town, it just is wonderful to be able to do. And again, I could not do this without the support of the residents of Los Gatos, the community and everything. When I first came to town, there were no trees. Sidewalks were in much disrepair. There were 8 gas stations on North Santa Cruz Avenue, and the rest of the town was pretty vacant. And you could really roll a bowling ball down and not hit anything. So I've seen there are no trees and other things. So I've seen a great, wonderful transition, and it just does my heart good to see all the work that's put in by the council and members and residents of Los Gatos to make this happen. And I want to thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stahl. And, again, we really appreciate your business in town, and 53 more years. Good. We look forward to your continued success. Thank you.
Thank you.
As people leave, I'd just like to mention that we do have a new town website coming to Los Gatos, and that will be addressed under Manager Matters. Town Attorney, are you ready for our closed session report?
Yes. Prior to tonight's regular session, councilmen in closed session on 2 items, labor negotiations and real property negotiations. As to both those items, no action was taken that requires reporting under the Brown Act.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite those who are in attendance tonight to fill out a speaker card if you'd like to speak on any item which is not on the agenda during our verbal communications, and they are located directly in front of you. Moving on to council matters. Does any member of council have something they would like to share? Councilmember Przinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Thursday, June 5th, I attended the Valley Transportation Authority Board of Directors meeting. On Wednesday, the 11th, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission meeting, in Oakland, and on Thursday, the 12th, the Cities Association Board of Directors meeting in Sunnyvale.
Thank you. Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last meeting, I have attended the town's housing board meeting along with the vice mayor and many others. And we completed our initial work. We selected the arena sites, and we will be meeting again to follow up in August. The police ad hoc committee met, and its work is continuing, and we may be reporting out to the entire council in August. And the policy committee met, and we, Ms. McNutt and I, are reporting out to you as part of our agenda this evening.
Thank you. Any others? Manager matters.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I did want to announce to the public some changes to library hours that begin this week. First, the library will be closed this Wednesday for our twice-a-year in-service work and training for the library staff. We'll also be closed July 4th for the holidays. And beginning this coming Sunday, the library hours will change from 12 to 5 to 10 to 3 to avoid the conflicts that occurred during the Music in the Park series. So no reduction in hours, we're just moving the hours earlier to avoid that conflict. Second, as has been noticed in the press and online, the town began the long-awaited improvements to Highway 9 and University Avenue. That intersection will be improved over the course of the summer, with the work scheduled to be completed by the end of September. I also did want to inform the council and the public that Police Chief Scott Seaman is retiring as of August 1st, 39 years to the day since he first became a police officer, and there will be a community-wide celebration of his retirement on July 31st. And information is available online as well as in the Weekly Times, but I did think this was an appropriate time for the council to note as you go into your July recess and to acknowledge Police Chief Scott Seaman for his years of service to the town. And with that, tonight's Did You Know will be another recognition as well, but we're changing it to present the town's new website. And doing the presentation will be Assistant Town Manager Pamela Jacobs and Assistant to the Town Manager Christina Gilmore. Ms. Jacobs?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the public. Did you know that the town last designed its website in 2003, and that's what's up on the screen right now. And tonight we are pleased to preview the newly redesigned website and its special features and navigational graphics that will help users find information more quickly. The new site will actually launch on July 1st once we complete all of the content migration and fully populate the new features. Right now we're about 85% there. Updating the website is one of Council's strategic goals, and we are nearly ready to accomplish that with the very capable coordination of Christina Gilmore, the assistant to the town manager. I want to thank Christina and the core design team and all the departmental liaisons for all their hard work in making this important tool even more effective for the community. So you can see by looking the new updated look, the new color palette, and I'd like to point out a few of the new features to you tonight. First, I'll show you one of the quick access buttons. We'll go to Agenda and Minutes, and here you can click to see the most recent council meeting, which happens to be tonight's meeting. Also on this page, you can see a link to the new public guide to town council meetings, which we have also just produced in a brochure, which will be distributed to the public soon. Two of the other new features include How Do I, which is a comprehensive list of questions and links so that people can find the information they're looking for much quicker. This was not a feature that we had on our old website. And the other new feature I'd like to talk about is called My Connections. at the top of the website. You can click on that and sign up, and then the user can customize the website so that all of the information that they want to readily access will be on their own personalized, customized website. And finally, I want to show links to another one of the council strategic goals, and that regards creating a database of conditional use permits. And what we've done is, for quick access on the home page, we have put code compliance on the left navigation. And when you go to code compliance, you can click then on the approved list of approved conditional use permits for restaurants and alcohol establishments. This is something that the community has requested and the council has directed the staff to do, and it is now online. And you can also, at this location, click on a complaint form to raise questions regarding the CUPs or other code compliance issues. And this is actually going to be part of a request tracker system, so that when the resident submits a complaint, he or she can actually track the status of that complaint, see where it is in the process, and then get their response right through the system. And these are just a few of the features of the new town website. We're going to have a feedback form once it launches, so that the public can help us identify any missing information or information where there are links that are broken, and also provide other help for us to make the website even better. And we really think that this new website will be a very effective tool for the community in getting information and communicating with the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Are there any questions?
One other feature that I've been discussing with Community Development Director and future Assistant Town Manager Laurel Pravetti is also putting up a page of public noticing. So whenever we do the required 10-day noticing of future Planning Commission or council items, we can also populate a page on the website so that there's one-stop shopping for all the legally required noticing of future land use items that are coming before the town. So that's a future edition, hopefully by Labor Day as well. I did want to take a minute to single out another change that's coming. Pamela Jacobs, after a successful career in San Jose, started as assistant town manager on May 6, 2002. She retires, or rewires as she calls it, this Friday, June 20th, 2014. That's 12 years, including 6 months as your interim town manager. From the first day to her last, she has been the manager behind the library project. As soon as she began with the town, she staffed the Civic Center Master Plan project in 2002, then staffed the design efforts beginning in 2007, oversaw the construction in 2010, and the opening of the library in 2012, and continues to supervise the library through this week. And it goes beyond to also coordinating the reuse of the old library. In addition, she supervises economic vitality, information technology, the clerk and council agenda process. She's been responsible for public communications, council and staff retreats, the policy committee, and the strategic goals process initiated by the council a few years ago. She's been my principal advisor throughout my time here, having her hands in all things budget, personnel, and organizational, and just causing such a significant benefit to the town. At the directors' meeting this morning, there was kind of unanimous acclaim that she's the heart and soul of our organization. And it's not many managers you see a placard on their wall that simply says, "Because nice matters." So, beyond the town, she has also played the role as the founder and co-founder of the Assistants Association in our county, and has been the point of contact with the YWCA, including being a twin honoree herself. It is my honor to present Pamela Jacobs to the town council for her final council meeting.
May I say a few words, Mayor?
Just a
A
minute.
few words.
especially if you're going to give me that.
I couldn't put it back down. It was too heavy.
Well, I do want to say how honored I've been to serve this wonderful community. It's been great working alongside employees that are really second to none. Their dedication and their talent and their commitment to providing small town service to all of our customers is amazing. And the managers and the executive team are all so dedicated to public service and to being collaborative and being creative. And I want to say a special thank you to Greg for his past 6.5 years of leadership to the entire organization. And I also want to acknowledge the town council for your countless hours and dedication and thoughtful consideration as you do your job as community stewards. Your passion for this community is evident in all of your deliberations, and it's been a great privilege to support you in the hard work of the council and in the celebrations, which I must say I've liked those the best. They've been really fun. And to the community, I want to say thank you. Thank you for engaging, for caring, for volunteering, and for letting me be an adopted daughter for the past 12 years. You are all very fortunate to have these employees and this town council as the ones you are shaping the future of this extraordinary community with. So thank you to all.
Thank you, Pamela. Very heartfelt words. Now we move back to business of the evening, which is our consent calendar. Mr. Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and public, we have 4 desk items that are presented today for today's consent calendar. The first is for item number 1, the minutes from your last meeting, and it's to correct the vote recordation on item 16. The second desk item is for item number 5. That's regarding the Chamber of Commerce contract. And in response to a council inquiry, we've provided additional language that says that any town funds would not be used to advocate for or against a land use application either before or after it has been considered by the council, and that has been presented to the Chamber of Commerce. The third desk item is item number 6, related to the Public Employees Retirement System side fund payoff, and it provides clarification that the $2 million of town reserves are $2 million in excess of what the, beyond what the council requires in its policy. So it's $2 million that is accumulated beyond what the council policy requires. And item number 8, the desk item for item number 8 is regarding the landscape maintenance project, in that our selected vendor has not increased their pricing because of the leaf blower ordinance recently adopted by council. If the council so chooses, the motion maker on the consent calendar can include that information and those changes as part of the motion and still keep it a single consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Does any member of council wish to pull a consent item this evening? Seeing none, does any member of the public wish to pull a consent item this evening? Seeing none, I will look to council for a motion. Vice Mayor.
I'd like to move approval of the consent calendar, specifically making the correction to item 1 contained in our desk item and including the language that's included in our desk item for item 5. I think the other desk items are informational only.
A motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, none. It passes unanimously. Moving on to verbal communications. I have one speaker card, and that is Ronnie Nassi.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council and members of town staff and the public. I am Ronnie Nassi. I am the Executive Director of the Los Gatos Chamber of Commerce. And before I get into what I am really getting up here for, I would like to make an announcement, which is that the Chamber has chosen its business person and business of the year for 2014, and the awards will be given out on July 24th at our annual dinner at La Rinconada Country Club. The winner of the business of the year for 2014 is Pet People of Los Gatos, a longstanding Los Gatos business. And I am so pleased and honored to be able to say that the winner of the Business Person of the Year is our own Councilmember Diane McNutt, a founder of the Chamber of Commerce. Since she's not running for council again, it's not a conflict of interest kind of thing, but Diane is being honored at that event as well. We hope you'll all join us to celebrate the event. Congratulations, Diane. For the past 12 years, I've had the privilege of serving as the Executive Director of the Los Gatos Chamber of Commerce, and thank you for approving our contract tonight. Makes us very happy. Although I'll still continue to work at for the Chamber by facilitating Leadership Los Gatos and by being an active Chamber and Visitors Bureau member. I am retiring at the end of this month. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you Zach Marks, who is going to be the new, actually he already is the Executive Director. We're co-executive directoring for the past 2 weeks and for the next 2. And I am very confident that Zach will be leading our organization into the future in a very, very positive way. He's got a very impressive resume for somebody who is as young as he is, and he also has a great memory. He's remembering everything that I've been telling him. He has spent time in Los Gatos previously, a number of years ago, as a small business person, so he has business experience. He has worked in a nonprofit. He ran and organized a nonprofit for brain tumors. He has also worked in City Hall in San Francisco, as well as working for Senator Ted Kennedy when he was in Washington. He's moved to Los Gatos, so he's now a Los Gatos resident, and as of actually June 30th, it's all his. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Zach Marks. Want to say a couple of words? Say hello? Can maybe say something? Go.
Well, Mr. Mayor, council members, it's very nice to meet all of you, and thank you, Ronnie. I'm seeing so many wonderful people stepping down and retiring, and I'm one of the new faces that is now stepping up. So I really look forward to working with all of you and getting to know all of you much more personally over the next few years, and I'm sure you'll be seeing much more of me. And just a little bit more about myself. I come from City Hall in San Francisco, so this is my first council meeting here in Los Gatos. And I'm really looking forward to running the Chamber of Commerce in town. We have some wonderful, exciting events planned that are coming up very soon. And so please don't hesitate to contact me if you need anything. And I look forward to seeing all of you over the next years. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Moving on to our first public hearing. I see no other speaker cards, so I'm assuming no one else wants to speak during verbal communications. So moving on to our first public hearing, which is our landscaping and lighting assessment districts number 1 and 2. Providing our staff report this evening is Mr. Matt Morley, our Parks and Public Works Director. Mr. Morley.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the return of an item that reestablishes the landscape and lighting assessment districts for the town. The districts and the hearing tonight have been noticed as appropriate. This was the opportunity tonight for the protest to the reestablishment of the district. Should anybody protest that the opportunity, and with that, I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Morley. Does anyone on council have questions for staff on this item? Seeing none, we will open the public hearing. I have no cards on this item. Does anybody wish to speak on this item this evening? Seeing none coming forward, I will close the public hearing and look to council for a motion. We have the Vice Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt all of the resolutions for the lighting and landscape and lighting districts that are listed on page 2 of our staff report, numbers 3 through 8.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Moving on to agenda item number 10, which is consideration of the conditional use permit U-13-018, property location 55 Los Gatos Saratoga Road, and the property owner applicant 55 Partners LLC. We're considering a request for a conditional use permit to operate a quality restaurant with a separate bar and full alcohol service on property zoned CHPD. And providing our staff report this evening is our planning manager, Mr. Joel Paulson.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Before you this evening, as stated, is the applicant's request for a conditional use permit. The request involves a restaurant with outdoor seating, full alcohol service, and a separate bar in conjunction with the existing hotel that is on the site, which is the Inn of Los Gatos. Pursuant to condition number 16, there will be no live entertainment or amplified music allowed. There's further detailed analysis regarding hours and other operational issues in the staff reports that have been provided for both the Planning Commission and the Town Council, as well as desk items. You have been provided a desk item this evening for this matter. There's a number of questions that were asked regarding this matter. In those desk items, all but one of those questions were answered in the desk item. The one that staff was looking into trying to get further information regarding was question number 1, which was the hours of operation for the Los Gatos Lodge bar and restaurant, their bar and grill. Staff today looked through some of the old documents that we have, and there is no detailed information regarding the actual hours for that. There's possibility that given when that was approved was quite some time ago, and some of our older permits don't have as much specificity as we currently ask for today with our conditional use permits. This matter was considered twice by the Planning Commission. First was on April 23rd, and at that meeting they continued the matter to May 21st and asked the applicant to provide some clearer plans and then additional clarification on the proposed seating, the enclosure for the outdoor patio, the use of the breakfast room and private dining room, and then the operation of the previously proposed to-go window. On May 21st, the Planning Commission reconsidered the item and forwarded a recommendation for approval to the Town Council with a number of modifications to and/or additions to the conditions of approval. Those are outlined in the staff report, but generally summarized as removing the to-go window that was previously proposed, setting the maximum number of outdoor seats at 12, that restaurant patrons not be seated after 10 p.m. The bar length was limited to 24 feet. Alcohol service shall cease at 10, and then delivery hours were to be coordinated between the uses on the site and to try not to conflict with the challenging school operations from the traffic perspective. And these modifications are all included in Attachment 7 and Exhibit A of Attachment 8, and their modifications are shown in bold type. That concludes staff's report, and staff is here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. We have a question from Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Remind me, did the Planning Commission add a condition that this is supposed to come back for review in a year relating to the parking issue? Or was that just something that was discussed?
So there's a condition number 17, which is a 1-year review, that they'll review the conditional use permit in total. So that would include any issues relating to parking or any other concerns that have been raised.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Paulson, I just wanted to make sure I understood. When you talk about a separate bar, are you referring to the bar dining, what I'm going to call the bar dining area? That's the 24-foot? It's not actually another room with a bar in it.
Correct.
It's just a bar where I could choose to eat,
You are
correct?
correct.
Okay.
Councilmember McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. I asked this question and it was answered in the desk item, but I guess I didn't like the answer, so I'll ask it again. I'm a little confused and/or concerned about the hours of operation. I'm sure later we'll discuss the ending hours of operation. I'm concerned about the beginning hours of operation because, as I understand it, the restaurant plans to provide breakfast to the hotel guests. So in my mind, they are operating. They might not be open to the public, but they are operating as a business. So, and I'm looking ahead to where we get in many years from now, when people are looking at this, are they going to say, well, they're not in compliance with their CUP because there's a condition that says they can't start until 11, and I saw somebody in there cooking at 7:30 in the morning. So can you explain why the hours wouldn't be earlier, or if there's another business model that would have activity going on, sales being made, that's not considered operating in business?
So it's staff's understanding that the restaurant, as proposed here, is going to be the hours that are proposed in the CUP. The breakfast room is intended to be like many hotels, where you have it's not going to be a chef, to our understanding, that will be coming in and preparing it on behalf of the restaurateur who's proposed to go in there. So it'd be, they have juice, cereal, croissants, maybe a waffle machine, something like that. But the applicant will be prepared to answer that and provide further clarification. But to staff's knowledge, the restaurant, as proposed by this conditional use permit, will only operate from the hours as listed in the CUP.
Okay, so that makes it clear. So from staff's point of view, it's being borrowed by the hotel as a serving room for their continental breakfast, as opposed to the restaurant serving breakfast to the...
Correct. It's an ancillary use to as staff understands it.
Okay, and I'll be asking the applicant to clarify that also. Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, we will open the public hearing on this and call the applicant forward. I would like to remind those who would like to speak on this item to please fill out a speaker card located in the chairs in front of you. So please come forward. You have 10 minutes to present your business proposal.
Council members, I'm John Shank. Thank you for hearing us tonight, and I'm standing here with Andrew Welch.
John, if you could move the microphone or speak more.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi, honorable council members, John Shank. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and thank you for hearing us. We're really happy to be coming to you tonight with planning commission approval, with conditions, and with staff's recommendation to approve. So we're thankful for that. With that, we are accepting of all the conditions that are on there, except for 3 that we'd like to ask you to consider changing. The first one is condition number 7. A maximum of 12 patio seats are allowed. We'd like that to change to a max of 22, but we would still adhere to the 82-seat total limit. Condition number 9, restaurant patrons shall not be seated after 10 p.m. We would like that changed to 11:30 p.m. And condition number 11, alcohol service shall cease at 10 p.m. We would like that changed to 11:30 p.m. And with that, I'd like to introduce Andrew Welch. We've known Andrew for several years, as I think you probably know through reading the materials, and he's been a restaurateur for 30 years. And we're just delighted that he's part of this project. And with that, I'll hand it over to Andrew.
Good evening, everyone. I wish Harry was speaking for me tonight. I find that I'm very blessed to have this opportunity. These gentlemen approached me, offered me the opportunity to be the operator. I've known them for 14 years, and I hope to be the operator in this space. They've done a lot of work and put in a lot of money and time into turning what was a seedy motel into a nice business inn. The items that we were hoping to have adjusted, the time served being the first one, is just basically to be able to stay in business and to be able to provide the quality restaurant we want to be able to provide for you. If someone arrives at 9:45 and it's a party of 4, business dinner or family affair, and 2 are running late, they settle down at 10:15. To give proper service, I really need to be able to serve them during the weekdays at least till 11, hopefully 11:30, certainly Friday and Saturday till 11:30, but I'm not asking for 1 minute more than that. No one would return to the restaurant if I said to them after being seated at 10 o'clock, you need to order right now everything you want, or I can't serve you. So that's a major concern of mine. The other concern is the patio at 12. The initial drawing from the architect was just spreading out the seats of the 82 seats. And I have not been a part of this project from the beginning. A lot of this is new to me. And looking at the seating and knowing how patio works in my restaurant, I literally have people that walk in and will refuse to eat anywhere else but the patio on a beautiful day. If I'm limited to 12 and someone comes in and says, may I please sit outside, and they see there's really plenty of space to move a table out there, have chairs, whatever the case may be, and I tell them no, again, that customer is never going to return and patronize the business. So I'm excited about this opportunity, however, to actually pay the bills, have return clientele, bring in the quality and level that I need to bring in and to be able to pay the bills. Those two conditions for me to be the operator are certainly important. I would not be able to be if I was not allowed to serve until 11 on the weekdays and upwards of 11:30 on Friday and Saturday. At my current restaurant, we have the right to go to 2 a.m. We never do. It's a class establishment. We serve a high-end clientele. We've been there for 15 years. We have 0 instances with the ABC reports, 0 sheriff instances. It's a class operation. I inherited a bar. In this instance, I'm blessed enough to be able to come in, create this 24-foot long landing, but behind it, it's actually counter height as opposed to bar height. Behind it is all about food, pizza oven, oyster station, grill, and it's not intended, and nor will it be, a place where you'll see shots or Red Bull or Coors Light on draft. This is going to be a really nice class establishment, and anyone knows my history knows that that's how I operate the basin as well. Any questions for me?
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Welsh. I have a question regarding the hours, and it concerns just asking you for your basis for your demographics or your target market being at a hotel, why it's important to you to stay open or be able to serve longer than the 10 o'clock that the Planning Commission has put on you.
Well, if I can't serve past 10, then people who are coming in for reservations upward of 9:30 cannot possibly have a good dining experience, and even as much as 9 o'clock. We're in Silicon Valley. We're dealing with a lot of people who work late and hard. I have couples that arrive at my restaurant currently at 9:30, 10 o'clock because they're finally getting done with their day, and they're arriving to enjoy a dinner together before they go home and start it all over again. It's just not a class environment to say to people coming to enjoy and spend money, we can't serve you. So for me to possibly take care of the community and the inn, I would need to do that. But keep in mind that it tapers off. We're not talking about a packed restaurant at 11:30. We're going to take reservations upwards of 10 p.m. But if people are running late, which happens in life, I need to be able to let them in. If the mayor was sitting there with a party of 3 of his 5 and 2 of his guests were going to be 15 minutes later than 10 o'clock, I wouldn't be able to say to them, hey, you know, you can't come in the door, I can't serve you, I can't take care of you. And as far as the inn portion is concerned, I'm excited because they're gearing it as a business inn. I do not want to serve, I would not be a part of a motel type atmosphere or anything else. A lot of my people are business people. I hope you got a couple letters to that point. We do a lot of business dinners, and we take care of them, and then they come back with their families on the weekends. And it's very hard to pay the bills. We do very well at the basin, and we have about 3% margins. The way we buy food, pay people, recontribute to the community, it's not easy, and I just would be too nervous to be able to pay my bills, quite frankly.
Councilmember Brzezinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a clarification on this last question. As I read the conditions of approval, and I may be misreading this, and I may be misinterpreting the Planning Commission, but item 9 says no restaurant patrons shall be seated after 10 p.m. That doesn't say they will not necessarily be served after 10 p.m. It just says they will not be seated after 10 p.m. And I thought in the Planning Commission's discussion, the issue was really about cutting off the reservation possibilities at 10 p.m. and not saying finish your meal by 10 because we're not serving any food after that. So I need a clarification, perhaps from you, but also from staff on that, because I did not see this as a cold stop at 10 p.m. for food service.
That, I believe, and with his support, Mr. O'Donnell, who is a great gentleman, at the end motioned for the 10 o'clock, and he was asked the question, does that mean hard stop service at 10 o'clock? And he said, yes, hard stop service. At that point, there was no getting around saying yes to the motion. It was say yes or basically come up with another motion and deny us. And it was almost comical because they were actually laughing at the fact they had to shut us down at 10 o'clock based on that motion being sent. And Mr. O'Donnell was just in my restaurant last Thursday saying to me he was reminded about our great food, glad he saw me there, and was sitting there at 10:30 still enjoying himself. So I'm not sure how it all got caught up, but he definitely said 10 o'clock stop service.
If I might continue? I saw that as alcohol service. That's still up for question, but I did not see the cold stop for service because it doesn't make any difference. Why make any sense? Why would you be open till 11:30 if there was going to be no service after 10 o'clock? So I would really like a clarification of that Planning Commission interpretation in regards to what I read and what the staff understood.
You're correct. They could take reservations up till 10 o'clock, and then after 10, they wouldn't be seating any additional people. So that's how the condition is worded, and that's staff's interpretation. And the town attorney will offer some more.
And the discussion regarding ceasing had to do with the alcohol. I think he's mixing up the two discussions that Planning Commission had. The Planning Commission said, yes, you had to cease any alcohol service after 10 p.m., but if you were seated, their discussion was is you could still order food after 10 p.m. That was what their motion was.
I believe that clarifies it for me.
Okay.
Other questions? Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the issues that came up with your neighbor across the street and at the Planning Commission meeting was this issue of parking and whether or not you had enough parking in reality. And also because of the commission's concern, they had your CUP coming up for review in 1 year. What is your response to the parking issue? I mean, I'm going to assume that you don't want to come up for review in 1 year. But if there is a concern about the amount of parking, how can the town be comfortable with not having you come back up in a year? For example, have you struck a deal with the business or the property across the street or something like that?
We haven't struck a deal with with the property across the street. What we've done is we've had numerous parking studies done, of course, leading up to the Planning Commission, and those parking studies we've chosen to rely on, and hopefully the town has chosen to rely on them, that I think were for 95 seats in the restaurant and 50 rooms in the hotel. We've since reduced the number of rooms at the hotel to 48. The number of seats at the restaurant are 82. So that's one element. We, yeah, I mean, we've taken it, we have, over several years, taken our own parking counts hourly, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., because nobody wants a parking problem any less than we do. As owners of the property, we have leases to honor, and one would be with Andrew, another would be with our other tenant there, as well as with the hotel guests. So we've actually done our own parking counts for several years because we need to make sure that the parking works and that the parking works on site. And our goal is to be self-sufficient and be good neighbors with our neighbor across the street, but to really encourage people to be parking in our parking lot because the studies have shown and our counts have shown that there's parking that supports it.
Please continue.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned that there were two bar heights that you referenced two bar heights, and what were those two numbers?
Well, there's a table height which is 29 inches. Bar comes in, I believe, 10 inches higher. I'm not sure if that's the exact count. We're coming in at a more of a food counter height, which is in between those two heights.
And that is what? What is that height?
What's the counter height?
The normal bar heights in the town of Los Gatos are 42 inches. Our bar height would be 36.
All right, so 36 inches. And then I have a question about your request to increase the patio seats to 22. I know what you want, and Mr. Mayor, I have a question of staff. I can go now?
Yes.
Why did the Planning Commission or the staff limit the outdoor seats to 12? And do you have any input as to the request for 22?
I'll take a look as the questions continue, but I believe that was what the applicant proposed originally. So that's where the 12 came from, but I will double check that question. The other, in regards to whether 22 seats fit out there with the required barrier, that we don't have plans showing that that does work currently, but if the applicant thinks that they can meet those to the council's satisfaction, that's something staff's willing to consider.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions? Councilmember McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. So I will ask you the question I asked staff, if you can confirm what their interpretation is on this breakfast service, that the restaurant is not cooking breakfast for the hotel is using a room of the restaurant to serve like a continental breakfast. Is that correct?
Mr. Paulson's interpretation was correct, yes.
Okay. And then my second question, I actually would like to ask it of staff, but I want to do it while they're still standing there in case there's a follow-up. And that's to follow up, Mr. Paulson, on what you just said. I know Planning Commission was concerned about the somewhat vagueness of the plans that they saw in terms of how that exterior stairway, the sliding doors to the dining room, the enclosed outdoor seating, the ADA pathway would all work together. Putting aside whether it's 12 or 22 seats as part one of the question, is staff comfortable that that would all work together? And then part two is, and are you comfortable if it moved up to 22 that could work?
Staff is comfortable with your first question. We believe there are ways. There might have to be slight modifications to that sliding door, but ultimately they'll have to meet building code from an egress perspective, which is the concern that was raised. The 22 seats, we'd have to see that on paper and see what, if any, other modifications were necessary. The applicants in their plans proposed 12 seats, and so to come back to Councilwoman Spector's question, that's where the 12 seats was derived. Glancing through the applicant's original letter of justification, there was no reference to 12 outdoor seats. It just said 82 seats, inclusive of indoor and outdoor seating.
So if I just might do a follow-up. So how would we go about approving this tonight and setting a number in the CUP if staff doesn't know what number they would be comfortable with?
So ultimately, it's going to be driven by building code requirements. So the council has a number of options. One, they could ask the applicant to draw that up and provide that information. The second would be the condition could be worded to, which currently it says a maximum of 12 seats. So the condition could be changed to up to 22 seats, and then obviously you have to follow building code from the ADA pathway and the egress issues. So if it was determined as this moved forward by staff that 22 wouldn't work, then that's something that would have to be changed. But if you use the up to 22 seats, if that's the council's desire, then that's another way to potentially handle it.
Vice Mayor.
Just wanted to follow up with the applicants. As I understood your presentation initially, you asked for up to 22, correct? You don't want a fixed number of 22, you wanted up to 22, is that right?
What would be exactly? What I'm looking for is to be able to move the 82 however I need to move it throughout the year. If there's rain, that 82 might be distributed inside if it's a comfortable space issue. If there's a situation where I only need 12 outside one day, that's one thing. If my party of 6 showed up with 10 people and I have to scramble, I want to have that flexibility so I'm not turning people away in those types of situations. So I'm looking for 82 distributed however is comfortable, 22 being the max on the patio.
Vice Mayor.
So a condition that said you may have up to 22 seats on a patio as determined by building code, you would be fine with that, I assume?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any further questions for the applicants at this time?
Can I comment real quickly on a follow-up on that, that the 12 seats that were in there were done before Andrew's, we've been working on this since last fall, I mean, since last September, and you'll notice in the Planning Commission that Andrew came in for the May 21st commission meetings. We've had a lot of his benefit of his input since then. But those 12 seats were on there for that Planning Commission meeting, and it kind of got latched onto as being 12 seats outside. But, you know, I think it was more just showing a representative of outside seating without necessarily saying, oh boy, we only want 12 outside seats.
Councilmember Brzezinski.
All right, so there were some additions that were included in the conditions of approval at the last planning commission meeting. I want to go through each of them just to confirm that, that these are what you are interested in accepting or want to clarify further. The go-to window is gone, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then the maximum of 12 seats, we see this up to 22 if we want to reframe that condition, and that would be acceptable to you, giving you some flexibility depending on weather and the show up of people who would be on your site. The reservations for seating, stopping at 10, but continuing then the service of food from that point till your closing hours, that issue has now been resolved. Is that correct?
It has not been resolved. 10 is generally when I take my last reservations. You know, the branch doesn't bend breaks in service. If someone's running 15 minutes late, I'm certainly not going to want to shut the door on them and say, my CUP, I can't seat you. Once they are sat, I'm willing to not take a reservation past 10 p.m., but once they are sat, I do want to be able to give them service so they can enjoy their time at the restaurant, hence the 11:30. An hour and a half is a reasonable amount of time, I believe.
But you're still willing to say reservations get cut off at 10 o'clock?
I prefer to have a little more leniency and just say we will stop service at 11:30 hardcore. I'm certainly willing to, if need be, accept that condition for now. Hopefully, at least on Friday and Saturday, I can extend that to 11.
Okay. We've talked about the bar length at 24 foot, and that's not a problem, correct?
No, it's perfect, and again, we're going to be incorporating that as part of our cooking area, so it should be exactly what I need.
Okay, so I'm assuming then the only remaining issue that was amended is the alcohol service ceasing at 10 p.m.
Correct.
Would you talk to that, please?
Well, I have a restaurant right now that does $2.7 million in sales and has 3% margin. Wine is 40% of that. Wine and alcohol is 40% of that. 15% of it being beverage service or alcohol service, and 25% of it being wine. If I take away any aspect, including those 9:30 and 10 o'clock reservation aspects, I don't know where that 3% goes. We truly source food at a much higher level than most restaurants. We're the only restaurant in the entire Bay Area that only serves wild salmon. All our meats are never ever programmed. Basically, that doubles my costs. Our chefs make more than the sous chef at Boulevard makes. It's the way we run things. I have to do as maximum amount of sales as I can in that short time available.
All right, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
I just wanted to follow up on the no alcohol service after 10. I'm assuming that if you're going to seat someone for dinner at 10:15, you want to be able to serve them a glass of wine. You know, you wouldn't give them food without offering them a drink, I assume.
That's why we're asking to serve till 11:30.
All right, just want to make sure.
Any more questions? I have one question regarding the outdoor seating. Would you be open to the idea of ceasing alcohol service outside after 10 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we will call to the public. We will invite you back up for 5 minutes after the public speaks. I have one card, and that is Wes Emerson. I'd like to remind those in attendance, if you'd like to speak on this item, please turn in a card.
Hi, I'm Wes Emerson, 16101 Shannon Road. I've been a member of the community of Los Gatos for 25 years, and I wanted to speak in favor of the conditional use permit, both as on a personal level And as a businessman, I also have a medical office on Los Gatos Boulevard. And I'm a little underdressed, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I think it speaks to what Andrew was saying, because, say, 45 minutes ago, I was still in scrubs and trying to wind down with patients and get out of my office. I think that this is going to be a real asset to our community, especially for Eastsiders like myself, wherein a big part of my business comes from referrals. And having a restaurant in a location where Highway 9 and 17 intersect gives me the opportunity to meet my referrals to review cases and such at a very convenient location where I don't have to go all the way downtown into Los Gatos to meet people. And I'd like to suggest some flexibility in the hours. As I said, I don't get off work until 7, 8 o'clock, even later some evenings. And so everything gets pushed back. And I think there needs to be some flexibility. I'm familiar with Andrew, and I'm familiar with this project. I've been running up the hill past it for several years now. There's been quite a beautification of that area compared to the kind of rundown motel that was there before. So again, I encourage your approval of the CPU. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Emerson. Next speaker is Pat Lynch.
Good evening. I am the property manager for the property across the street, who voiced some of the questions that have been answered and addressed tonight. I have met several times now with John Shank, and I met this afternoon with Andrew as well. And we are not seeking to block what they're doing. We do anticipate a very enjoyable experience if they're able to pull this together and it's successful in all the phases of the property. Our concern still is parking, and we've had that conversation with them. It was suggested at the planning department meeting that they approach us about how we could help them with their parking issue, since we have excess parking in some of the hours that they will need extra parking. And we've had soft discussions about that, and I think that possibly in the future, as this comes to fruition and if they're successful in all the endeavors that they choose in this location, we may be able to work something out. And as to the hours of operation, we don't see any issue with the outline that's been presented tonight, as long as alcohol ceases at a reasonable hour. So I just wanted to speak to that to the council and also present myself if there's any other questions.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Lynch.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Robert Jones.
Good evening. My name is Robert. I've been a part of this town for about 23 years. Grown up a lot of kids. I'm speaking from a perspective of a business owner, several businesses. I own a high-tech factory automation business and also a vineyard and a winery business, third generation. I'm speaking from a business perspective that I probably influence probably about 400 to 500 nights of hotel rooms here in Silicon Valley. I prefer in conducting business here in my town. Unfortunately for the executives and the business people I'm doing with, the town quite can't handle what I've got as far as what they're looking for. A key part is we're needing a hotel, an inn that does have a restaurant, okay? And also a very key part of this is that we need meeting areas where it's easy to go ahead and meet at 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock. And a very key part of what this team is trying to do is a very forward thinking that we're seeing in San Francisco, that we're seeing in Florence, that we're seeing in Rome, that we're seeing in many other areas, and that being the community table. And we haven't really even talked about that community table. We're talking about the table heights, but what we're really talking about is community table, where we basically sit at a table among friends and many others and business people and share. And that's what this team is talking about doing. That's what I'm needing for my business people. I got Marco Capelli coming in. I've got Fabrizio coming in from Florence over here. He doesn't want to be sitting at a bar. He wants to be sitting at a table. He wants to get he wants to get the vibe of the town. We have a world-class town. We all know that. Okay? You guys know that. I know it because I go everywhere around the world. And this is world-class. We want to share it. We want to share it with people around the world. And we don't have that. And that's what this team is bringing to this town. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. That was the last card I had for speakers on this item. If no one else wishes to speak, I'd like to call the applicant forward again to add to the discussion. You have 5 more minutes.
Great, well, thank you. You know, it was mentioned earlier, I think Andrew mentioned that there might have been some letters that we wanted you to see, and they might have come in a little bit late. Just wanted you guys to know, in case you thought it was appropriate here, we could share them with you. But there is a letter from Joe Pinto, a Senior VP of Technical Support Services, that's to the Planning Commission, or excuse me, it's dated to the Planning Commission, it was for back then, but for the Town Council's consideration, just a glowing review of Andrew. And it references, it is my pleasure to provide a reference for Andrew Welch, owner and proprietor of the Basin Restaurant in Saratoga, and it goes on and on and on. Similar letter has been provided by John Couch, Vice President of Education at Apple. And with that, maybe I could ask Andrew to comment a little bit.
So I guess to comment on these is to point out the point when I'm fortunate enough to have these people as my customers, Vice President of Education of Apple, Vice President of Technical Support for Cisco Systems, and have them coming in as their go-to place to get a business dinner done and coming back with their families. And they mention what I give back to their personal charities in these letters and back to the community. It's for me, this is really a place where I want to be an operator. My new family's right on Shannon Road. I'm gravitating this direction for a reason. And I would not have said yes to an opportunity in downtown Los Gatos, but this one gives me the opportunity to have that community aspect there that I can continue to do like I do in Saratoga. I know Saratoga, I'm in downtown, but I think we all know that Saratoga's downtown is quite different than Los Gatos and has this sort of similar community feel as far as the smaller aspect of the area. So I guess these letters just point out, and I hope you read them at some point, for 15 years, we've had nothing but integrity here. We approach everything with integrity, from green chemicals to biodegradable waste. Everything we do properly, and it's been a learning experience to get to the level of knowing how to do things properly, but now we have it, and we can bring it immediately to this new space.
One last comment I would like to make is that we've spent a lot of time on the few conditions that we really would like to have changed, and the main reason for that is that that's what makes it possible for Andrew to operate at the site and be successful. And if those conditions aren't met, it's going to be an incredibly difficult situation for a project that we started on back in 2006 and have spent a lot of blood, sweat, and tears through a lot of different things trying to make it to be just hopefully a glowing example of Los Gatos and a place that can be a treasured staple hopefully for years to come. We're getting great reviews on the hotel from what used to just be terrible eyesore type of reviews. And we're excited about the upgrades that have happened at the project, and for Andrew to be a part of it just takes it to the next level. And so thank you very much for hearing us tonight.
That's all I have to add. Thank you very much.
Right.
Hope to be able to do this.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Any further questions? Seeing none, we will officially close the public hearing and move to council for discussion, questions of staff, or motion. We have Councilmember Brzezinski.
All right, I'll start. I'm not going to make a motion, but just some general comments. I think one thing that started the 10 o'clock ball rolling was an interpretation by staff at the earliest Planning Commission meeting indicating that the recommendation was for denial based on number 6 of the alcohol beverage policy, which states the deciding body shall make the following findings prior to approving an application for a conditional use permit to serve alcoholic beverages past 10 p.m. That was the only time I saw 10 p.m. mentioned any place. But it calls out 3 different findings. That late night service will not adversely impact adjacent residential neighborhoods, that the applicant does not have a history of complaints or non-compliance with local ordinance or the ABC, and that the applicant has demonstrated a clear benefit to the community. And as I'm reading our policy, it seems to me that the applicant has demonstrated clearly that all 3 of those findings can be met. So to me, that in effect then means that we can approve alcohol service after 10 p.m. And that may have been why that time came to the table when it did. But I think that given the fact that we're looking at hours of operation to 11 o'clock on Monday through Thursday, and then 11:30 on Friday, Saturday, and 11 on Sunday, that to me says that if you're going to have a restaurant, and as the Vice Mayor indicated, if a person is at a white tablecloth restaurant having a meal after 10 o'clock, and then it's most obvious that in our town, alcohol service would be appropriate. I think therefore that would satisfy my issues relative to the applicant's request for the change not only of number 8, but number 9 and number 11. So I would be willing, as this council member, to remove that contingency. But I think that the request the mayor made regarding outdoor dining and a 10 o'clock stop on alcohol service there, which was agreeable to the applicant, would make sense, because that's the only way in which there could be disturbance of neighbors, since that's an exterior and open area, and there are apartments immediately behind it. As far as the seating on the patio is concerned, we approved as a council the change in our general plan this time around to encourage outdoor dining. Previously it was discourage. We changed it to encourage, and I think that it's really clear in terms of the way the dining experience is taking place in this community now. There is definitely an orientation toward outdoor dining. And if the applicant is willing to agree to the maximum of up to 22 in the outdoor area, and the staff agrees that it can be accommodated when you're looking at the configuration, then I think that actually goes towards fulfilling what that request we have made through our general plan to encourage outdoor dining in the community. So I'm very inclined to go with the approval with the changes that we are observing here before we get concluded tonight, but I'm not ready at this point to make a motion.
We have all 3 other council members raising their hand. We'll start with Council Member Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I pretty much agree with Mr. Przinski. First of all, by way of disclosure, I did meet with Mr. Shank and Mr. Welch. I believe that the Planning Commission, watching them and listening to them, I was trying to figure out where it was all going, and I agree with Mr. Przinski that I think the 10 o'clock complication came with the alcohol policy, and whereas I think that I am generally a council person who has a very restrictive view of our alcohol policy, I agree that all of those conditions that would extend the time between beyond 10 o'clock could be met, especially having a bar and restaurant combination in that part of town supported by the adjoining neighborhoods. So I would, I think Mr. Przinski mentioned paragraphs 8, I think he said 8, 9, and 10. or maybe 11. The one with which I would disagree is 8. I think 8 is good as it stands. I believe allowing for 22 outdoor seats at the discretion of the staff is acceptable. And then eliminating all of those 10 o'clock qualifications on paragraph number 9 and 11 would be acceptable, because you don't need them if you say you're going to have service up until 11 or 11:30. I mean, service will just end.
Councilmember McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor, and I also will disclose that I had 2 phone conversations with the applicants last week and earlier today. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion and then make some additional comments, because most of my comments actually are redundant of what's already been said. So we have 2 motions that are required tonight, and the first one is to make the required findings in attachment 6 and approve conditional use permit U13018 as recommended by the Planning Commission with the following modifications. So if we look at the conditions of approval on attachment 7, on condition number 7, changing that to a maximum of up to 22 seats are allowed on the patio. I don't think we need additional wording as per building code or anything like that, because I think that goes without being said. For condition number 8, hours of operation, I would keep that exactly as it is. For condition number 9, about no patrons shall be seated after 10, I would eliminate that entire condition. On condition number 11, on alcohol service, the last line I would change to say alcohol service shall cease after 10 p.m. on the patio, per the mayor's suggestion, and 30 minutes before closing time in the dining room. And then the last change that I would recommend is on condition number 17 that Councilmember Spector referenced earlier about the 1-year review. For purposes of this motion, I'm going to say take that out altogether, because I think that any concerns about parking can be taken care of through our complaint system that is being put into place, and it would just be a complaint we have against a conditional use permit and general code and the whole thing. So I don't think we need to have a 1-year review to come back in to say, are there any parking? I think there's other ways to address that. So that's the motion, if there's a second.
So we have a motion. Do we have?
Yeah. I was going to second.
Councilmember Spector.
Yes, I will second. And I agree with the elimination of all the conditions referenced by the maker of the motion. And I am also comfortable with removal of the 1-year review, because with our new code compliance officer and with our new website, any concerns that the public may have with the, let's say, noise, because the people are too noisy out on the patio, or because there's music when there shouldn't be music, I believe all of those will be addressed under our new paradigm.
We have, we'll go to the Vice Mayor first.
I just want to make my disclosure that I did have email communications with Mr. Welch regarding this, and that I am going to support the motion, but I have been an advocate of reviews of CUPs. I think it's a good thing to do. I think it gives the public a chance to be heard, but I'm not going to hold up this by not voting for the motion because that's been removed. However, I think I am an advocate of that process, and I'll just use this as a platform to say I really hope that this will prompt us to look at our 1994 resolution regarding outdoor seating.
Councilmember Brzezinski.
And I need to disclose also, I met with the applicants, and in referencing to item 8, I really wasn't recommending a change in those numbers. I was referencing it only in relationship to the closing times that would be consistent with the motion that's before us now.
All right, well, I also must disclose that I spoke with the applicant today on the telephone, and I will be supporting the motion. And if there's no further discussion, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. It passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Mayor, we have a second motion
Oh.
that needs to be made.
Very good.
And
Thank
that
you.
would be, if I could go ahead, that would be to adopt a resolution approving conditional use permit to operate Quality Restaurant with a separate bar and full alcohol service as outlined in attachment 8.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. It passes unanimously. Congratulations. Moving on to item number 10, or I'm sorry, item number 11, which is a zoning code amendment, A-14-001, zero emission battery electric vehicles. This is consideration of introducing an ordinance adopting amendments to Chapter 29 of our zoning regulations of the town code regarding the sale, service, and repair of zero-emission battery electric vehicles in the commercial 2 and CH zones, and the definition of service stations. And our staff report will be delivered by our planner, Jennifer Savage.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. The purpose of the subject town code amendment is to address the growing interest and demand of electric vehicles. It also serves as a way to promote some of the strategic goals established by Town Council. Those include supporting the diversity of downtown businesses and increasing the electric vehicles charging stations available in town. On May 28th, the Planning Commission reviewed the proposed Town Code Amendment and recommended approval with modifications, which I will discuss throughout this presentation. Currently, the sale of vehicles is allowed in the C2 zone, which is located here in downtown.
Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When you, it's going to be very important to me in your presentation that I know where these various C2, C1, CH are, and the colors sort of blend. So when you do your little pointer, it would be helpful if it wasn't like jumping all over. It'd be very, I would appreciate that.
Thank you.
And maybe Mr. Paulson could remain available to point as well if the pointer is not sufficient.
Okay, and so beginning again, vehicle sales are currently allowed in the downtown C2 zone. Salmon colored here, you'll see on North Santa Cruz Avenue on both sides, continuing down to South Santa Cruz Avenue, and then also continuing on the other side of 17 in this area of the downtown. Vehicle sales are also currently allowed in the CH zone. Some are located here off of Los Gatos Saratoga Road. The majority are located off of Los Gatos Boulevard, starting near Highway 85 and continuing down to Blossom Hill. Service and repair of vehicles is currently allowed in the CH zone, which we just looked at, and the LM zone, which can be seen here. And that's on University Avenue. There's another area of LM which is just north of Blossom Hill Road, which is off this map, but it is in this area here. The proposed Town Code Amendment proposes to continue the sales of vehicles in those two zones, C2 and CH, and the Planning Commission discussed also including vehicle sales in the LM zone. They actually recommended including the electric vehicle sales in the LM zone, and they considered including the recommendation to include those electric vehicle sales in the C1 zone, but did not make that part of their recommendation. As part of the proposed Town Code Amendment, staff is proposing a definition for electric vehicles, specifying that they be zero-emission battery electric vehicles. These would not include hybrid vehicles. Staff is also recommending a definition of sales, service, and repair of electric vehicles. The sales, service, and repair would be permitted in the C2 and CH zones, consistent with the existing sales of vehicles in the C2 and the CH zones. The difference with the electric vehicle sales, service, and repair is that service and repair is not currently permitted in the C2 zone. The proposed town code amendment also proposes to modify the existing definition of a service station, not to be confused with the service and repair of vehicles, but to clarify it is of a fueling station, if you will, or a gas station as we know it today. And the service stations are currently permitted in the C1, C2, CH, and LM zones. We've reviewed the C2, CH, and LM zones. The C1 zones, some are located outside of downtown here along Main, here along North Santa Cruz Avenue, and then around what we call neighborhood centers around downtown, or I'm sorry, outside of downtown. Some along Los Gatos Boulevard, as well as on the east side of Los Gatos here, and along Blossom Hill, as well as the west side of Los Gatos off of Winchester and here. So again, the definition for service stations would include alternative fuel, as well specifically the electric fuel, or electricity, if you will. The Planning Commission also recommended that we allow vehicle sales in the LM zone. So apart from the electric vehicle sales, also allow non-electric vehicles in the LM zone. Again, the Planning Commission discussed but did not recommend vehicle sales, electric vehicle sales in the C1 zone, but it is included in the proposed town code amendments should the council feel that it has merit. There are some desk items tonight, or one desk item rather, that answers some town council questions. And if you have any specific questions regarding that, I am available to answer those. If you have any additional questions, staff is available for those questions, and this concludes staff presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Savage. We have a question from the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Savage, thank you. I'm assuming that, as being on the Planning Commission, et cetera, and doing some land use in the town, that we have zones because we want to segregate certain types of businesses and uses to those zones: residential, retail, manufacturing, et cetera. And I'm also assuming that there's some value in the integrity of those zones. So, for example, what I'm going to call the Bentley dealership on East Main sells cars, but it doesn't service cars. It services them in Blossom Hill, where it can have a service center per the zoning. We used to have a Maserati showroom on North Santa Cruz, but there was no service. So my question to you is, what's the argument to, if you will, violate the integrity of those zones now to allow service in a zone that we really are designating for retail?
Thank you for that question. Based on the intensity, if you will, of the service and repair of electric vehicles, it's much less intense than that of internal combustion vehicles. The lower intensity comes from the reduced amount of fuels that are required to operate an electric battery powered vehicle. And that, just to clarify, the reason that the town code amendment would specify electric vehicles as only those being zero emission battery electric is to avoid the internal combustion engine of some hybrid vehicles, not all, but some. And that would support the proposed town code amendment based on the lower intensity of the service and repair of electric vehicles in the proposed in the proposed zones. And the sales portion is consistent with the existing C2 and CH sales of vehicles in the town code.
Follow-up? Thank you for your answer. In our desk item, you provided us with information about the disposal and recycling of batteries. Even though the service and repair is less intensive with an electric vehicle, I understand that, as opposed to a traditional combustion engine, there are still waste materials that are produced. So what, you know, the battery is a hazardous waste, there's brake fluid, there's gear fluids, there's going to be drums on site that have hazardous waste. Again, what's the argument to violate the integrity of a retail zone and put hazardous waste there?
Certainly there would be no hazardous waste, but it's much less than a internal combustion service location. Over the course of a year, you may have one drum of hazardous waste at an electric vehicle service station or service and repair garage, as opposed to an internal combustion service and repair garage where you might have several. The lower intensity allows you to use less space, to have less likelihood of an issue with hazardous waste. In any service and repair garage, there are regulations at the federal and state and local levels that require the strict control of storage and disposal of hazardous waste. So whether it's allowed in these proposed zones or elsewhere, those would be controlled with those state, federal, and local regulations.
Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did staff, in making its recommendations and doing its analysis, did staff explore other sites, for example, Tesla on Santana Row, to determine what issues, if any, they had with fluids, what issues, if any, they had with pickup and delivery of the vehicles, anything of that sort?
So understanding that each manufacturer may have their own system, their own practices, their own operational standards for servicing for pickup and delivery of vehicles, keeping that in mind, staff did visit a Tesla dealership and specifically one that had the service and repair component. We reviewed and walked the facility to see the amount of hazardous materials, the location of hazardous materials, how the service actually occurs, where it occurs, what uses were adjacent to those facilities, and whether there were any issues. That particular facility did have residential at the backside, and they had not had any issues to this date. In terms of the hazardous waste, their facility had a very, very small amount. It was one very small area that they kept their hazardous waste, and it took quite a while to fill up the drums and the containers for that. In regards to delivery of vehicles, that particular manufacturer has a very detailed order system where they don't keep a large number of vehicles on site. And they do use one truck at this point, a truck that carries only one vehicle, to deliver the vehicles from their manufacturing location to the dealership for the customer to pick up. There are some occasions where they deliver the vehicle directly to the consumer, but for the most part, just one truck of a tow truck type vehicle brings one vehicle to the dealership for customer delivery.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Since you piqued my interest in this subject, when staff made its visit and being unfamiliar with Tesla's business model, did they do any body work or tire service or anything of that nature?
They do have occasional tire service, and that is specified in our definition that the tire changing would be allowed, but that body work would not. At that particular location, they don't do body work on site. There's a specific body work garage that they recommend their customers go to.
All right, thank you. Any more questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll look to the public. I have no cards on this topic, but if anybody wishes to speak on this subject, please fill out a card and bring it forward. Seeing none coming forward, we will close the public hearing and look to council for discussion. Councilmember McNutt.
Thank you. Late with my question. I was trying to find it in here, but it's easier just to ask you. So any business that would be coming forward to open an electric vehicle service station in the zoning that's being proposed, would they be required to get a conditional use permit?
Yes, that is what the town code amendment is proposing, that the uses be permitted only with a conditional use permit. And the town code amendment modifies the town code to put X's in the appropriate columns in the conditional use permit table. And that's a great question, and if I may just expand that any of the concerns that may come up from operation of those types of uses can be addressed during the conditional use permit review process.
Yeah, because what I was thinking is a lot of those areas are quite broad, and so within a big area of zoning, there are some pockets that would seem to be more appropriate than others, but that could be addressed during a CUP hearing, is what you're saying.
Absolutely, you're right.
Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll do the same as Ms. McNutt. I could find it in the packet, but it's probably faster to ask staff. The Planning Commission recommended this use in C2, CH, and LM. Is that correct?
Yes.
But not C1?
Not in their recommendation, but they did discuss including it.
Do you recall why C1 was excluded?
Some members of the commission were concerned that some of the C1 zones were closer to neighborhood residential uses, but they did discuss that during the conditional use permit, you could address that.
All right, and staff did not initially recommend this use in the LM zone, but the Planning Commission did. I'm assuming that staff did not recommend the use in the LM zone because because we wanted to keep the LM for industrial use, and you were concerned that this could use up a limited amount of space.
Our initial recommendation was to be consistent with the sales of vehicles that are currently allowed in town code by permitting it in the C2 and the CH. However, the point that you brought up is correct. Generally and historically in the town, we have tried to maintain the LM zone open for specifically industrial uses, given we have such a small amount of that zone.
Thank you.
More discussion, more questions. Motion.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Brzezinski.
To get you off the hook, I'll go ahead and try a motion since we have a Planning Commission recommendation in front of us. Okay. I'll move to accept the Planning Commission's findings and recommendations in the form of the meeting minutes for this zoning code amendment, which does not require a motion, and that's contained in attachment 1. And to make the required findings that there's no possibility this project will have a significant impact on the environment. Therefore, the project is not subject to the CEQA Act. That's attachment 2, and that does require a motion. So I'll stop there. And that's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Vice Mayor.
I just have a question of the maker of the motion. I'm assuming that your motion is adopting the Planning Commission recommendations to include the LM zone.
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. So the motion carries 4-1.
So to continue, I'll make the required findings that the proposed ordinance amendments are consistent with the redevelopment plan for Central Los Gatos redevelopment project area, which is contained in attachment 2, and that's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Spector.
If I might, Mr. Mayor, a question of staff.
Yes.
Quite frankly, in going through all of these motions, I'm supporting this use except for the LM zone. And so I don't know where I vote no, unless I already missed the boat on number 2. Where do I vote no in order to not weigh in order not to have it in an LM zone?
Number 5 on page 1 of the staff report.
Number 5.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Vice Mayor, yes.
So my vote on, I would have told Councilwoman Spector that she missed the opportunity because I asked Councilperson Brzezinski, was he including the LM zone? And I, too, am opposed to expanding to the LM zone. So I'm hoping I'm not mistaken in my no vote on the last one, which was to not include the LM zone. But if you're telling me it's 5 as well, then okay. Is that correct? It's 1 and 5?
Number 1 was just accepting the planning commission's findings.
Okay, well, I'm still no because it found that LM was appropriate.
Okay, so back to where we were. We have a motion and a second. And do we have any other questions or discussions? I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
So we have a 4-1 on that as well. And what do we have
Keep
left?
Going. I believe I'm on number 4. Make the required findings that the proposed ordinance amendments are consistent with the general plan and its element that's contained in attachment 2. That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Passes 4-1.
Before I go
Wish
to
to
number 5,
continue?
I'm just assuming that we're not going to have this swarm of electric vehicle applicants coming into every zone in town. And so we're setting aside the opportunity, but I don't see anyone in the queue at this point necessarily. So I still feel comfortable with the LM zone because it opens an opportunity, but it doesn't assume that they're going to come in because we still have the conditional use permit process to go through. So with that, I'm going to move to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and move to adopt zoning code amendment A14001. That's my motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one I'm going to vote against because the staff has told me this is the one that really affects the LM. So since I don't want this use to expand into our very limited LM, I'll be voting against this.
Vice Mayor.
And I'm going to continue my no vote, not because I think there's a queue of applicants, but we are supposed to consider this not per applicant, but per zoning. And I think there's a reason to have zoning, and I don't want to see the zones eroded. I realize that there's a CUP process, but you could potentially make the entire town one zone, which I'm sure lots of people would like to do, and then just protect it by a CUP. But I think there's a reason that we have designated particular areas for particular uses. So I'm going to stick to my guns and try to keep the zones in place, and so I'm voting no.
Before we ask the question, would staff be able to put the chart back up on the slide back up that shows the LM zones?
Just to clarify, there's North Santa Cruz Avenue and Highway 9. And the LM on this map is here. Sort of looks purple or blue. And then there's additional LM zone here off of University as you go north of Blossom Hill.
And a question for staff. In the current LM zoning, do we allow things like body shops and tire service and things of that nature?
We do.
Okay. So along University Avenue, I'm thinking the industrial part of University Avenue, and I think of the smog shop near the area near the DMV, and there's a couple tire repair places, several body shops, and so already those types of auto repairs are occurring in those locations.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion on this? I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Well, it passes 3-2.
And to continue, I don't really see this as a, in any way disturbing or eliminating the zones. I think we're asking, or at least the Planning Commission asked us, to enhance a particular use in the zones of a vehicle that is currently on the horizon as perhaps something that's going to be a real contributor to this community and to our our environment in general. And the LM zone already has, as the mayor pointed out, a number of auto-related uses. So I don't think it is counterintuitive at this point to continue to recommend that. That said, I'm going to move to waive the reading of the ordinance, and there is a motion required for that.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Someone else wanted to.
I'll second. I'll second the motion. So that's item number 6. Do we have just?
All right, and then we want to introduce the ordinance, please.
Okay, the clerk wish to read the ordinance.
Ordinance of the Town of Los Gatos amending Section 29.60.210 of the Town Code regarding permitted uses in the C1 zone, amending Section 29.60.320 of the Town Code regarding permitted uses in the C2 zone, amending Section 29.70.100 of the Town Code regarding permitted uses in the LM zone, amending Section 29.10.020 regarding definitions of the sales, service, and/or repair of electric vehicles and service stations, and Section 29.20.185 regarding uses permitted with a conditional use permit.
And that was inclusive of that last motion in a second.
So that would be covering items 6 and 7?
Correct.
Okay. Councilmember Spector?
I'm not going to be supporting the, first, is there a second? I didn't even know.
We had a second.
All right. I'm not going to be supporting the motion because of its inclusion of the LM zone. And it's not that I don't think a vehicle sales and service would be inappropriate in the LM zone, because obviously that's the kind of use we have there, at least in part. It's just because I want to protect those uses in Los Gatos. I don't want to use up that limited zoning. So I'm just flipping. It's not because I don't think it could work there. It's because it might, and it could eliminate all those uses, or a good number of them in our town, and I want to protect them.
Thank you, Councilmember Spector. Is there any further discussion? In reference to some comments that were made earlier, I have a question for staff, and these comments were made by, I think, Councilmember McNutt regarding the CUP. In this instance, we would still need to evaluate a CUP for the business coming in. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. So further discussion on this? Vice Mayor? I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
So it carries 3-2. And that moves us on to item number 12 this evening, which is other business. We're looking at rescinding a resolution 2002-25 and adopting a new resolution governing the design review process and clarifying the roles and responsibilities of the architectural consultant. And this is continued from June 2nd. And providing our staff report is Mr. Greg Larson.
Thank you very much. Given the hour, I will, and the council has heard this item previously at both the study session and at your last council meeting. I'll just try to clarify from the desk item the various attachments that have been provided to you. Numbers 1, 3, and 5 are the relevant resolutions for the council to take action on tonight. Number 1 was the proposed resolution that was provided by staff in response to the April 21st council direction, with one clarification from your last meeting. We tried to clarify that it was staff's understanding of council's direction, and we clarified the language to make it clear that both the plans reviewed by the consulting architect as well as any revised plans after that point would be submitted to the Planning Commission and Council. Alternative resolution number 3 that was presented in your agenda packet was a presentation of the changes and edits recommended by the Vice Mayor at your last meeting. And then alternative resolution number 5 that was presented in today's desk item was requested by another member of council that uses the Vice Mayor's alternative resolution and makes the changes identified in the blue line version to address the concerns that staff had raised. So staff is seeking council approval of either resolution 1 or 5 or further discussion on number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Is there any questions for staff on this item? Seeing none, we will look to the public for their input. Does anybody have a speaker card? We have one.
Lee Quintana, 5 Palm Avenue. I would just like to state that I would support the attachment 5, the amended resolution of attachment 3. I think it, in my opinion, best clarifies what I understand the intent of the rescinding of the existing resolution and the proposal of a new resolution regarding the role of the consulting architect. Should council not adopt attachment 5, I would ask that the council consider deleting number C of attachment 1 and substituting the 5th whereas from attachment 5 for the 4th whereas of attachment 1. But I do support attachment 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other cards? Seeing none coming forward, we'll close the public hearing on this and look to council for discussions. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to my fellow council people for their patience with this, because I did pull it last time. And thank you to staff for its patience and for its reworking of the resolution. I would like to make a motion to adopt alternative resolution number 5, which is contained in our desk item. I do think it meets the intent of the discussion that we've had on this previously. I appreciate the changes that were made this afternoon. I think it does hopefully capture what we want to do going forward with the consulting architect, and so my motion is that we adopt number 5.
Councilmember Brzezinski.
A question of the maker of the motion. Given all the attachments that and the numerous numerical identifications, is the motion referencing what is called attachment 6 on today's desk item?
It's actually attachment 5 in the desk item. The blue is just showing you how it changed from 3.
Okay, but it's still
5 is the.
It reflects what the staff's amendment is. Okay, I'll
5
second.
and 6 are the same, with 6 showing what changed.
I will second the motion.
All right, so for clarification, the motion and the second includes desk item number 12, essentially the attachments in desk item number 12.
It's what it is. It's moving that we adopt attachment 5 to the desk item for item 12.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on this subject? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. It passes unanimously. We have one more item for discussion this evening, and that is the discussion and direction on the increased regulation of on-street vehicular sales and advertising. And our staff report is also going to be presented by Greg Larson.
Yes. Again, given the hour, I'll do a brief staff report since the council has discussed this previously. When adopting the strategic goals for 2014 through 16, you added a new strategic goal at the mayor's request to increase the regulation of on-street vehicular sales and advertising. Since my first year with the town, we have received complaints regarding vehicular sales and advertising, particularly on North Los Gatos Boulevard. We have been ramping up our enforcement efforts over time, and the specific recommendation to council tonight is to refer to the Transportation and Parking Commission consideration of increased parking restrictions on the portions of our streets that are most impacted by this. And then unless the council directs otherwise, staff will be increasing its enforcement beginning July 1st in two areas. One, the flyers that have been distributed on a complaint basis will be distributed at least monthly on potentially violating vehicles. And second, staff will begin enforcement based on potential business license violations by repeat car sailors and advertisers. No council direction is required on that increased enforcement unless you wish to direct staff not to do it. We already have the authority to proceed with that.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Do we have council discussion on this? Questions? Seeing none, does any member of the public wish to speak on this item this evening? No cards are in my possession, so we will close the public hearing and we'll move back to council for discussion. Councilmember Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go ahead and move that we refer increased street parking limitations to the Transportation and Parking Commission and support staff as it has indicated.
We have a motion. Vice Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. It passes unanimously. And that was our last item this evening. I want to adjourn this meeting in the name of Mr. John Schmuck in his honor for his years of service to our town and his recent passing on June 13th. Thank you.